Phil Wilson from Extreme Engineering. Welcome to the Attraction Pros COVID-19 video series. Thank you so much for your time today. How you doing?
Good. Thanks, guys, again for having me on, and doing great, as great as we all can be, right? So we're taking this a day by day, and yeah, no, we're keeping my chin up. So that's what we got to do, right?
That's
So,
good. That's good. Yeah, that's kind of our strange question right now. It's kind of the go-to question, how you doing? But
yeah,
we're
yeah,
all kind of in a strange place. So, one of the
yeah.
reasons, Phil, that we wanted to definitely talk to you today is a pivot that your business made, and then this will lead into a lot of other things in our discussion too. But I just saw recently on LinkedIn that Extreme Engineering was now making PPE for health workers, and so I'm curious if you can kind of walk us through that process. So, how did that come about? Going from making roller coasters to PPE.
Yeah, well, it wasn't something that we strategically planned. It wasn't something that was on our radar. It was more of something that just was a need in the current climate that we're dealing with right now. And yeah, we kind of just, I know I talked a little early before we got on here, but it was something that we had to talk about in terms of how do we help with the current climate? How do we adapt to the current situation and provide something useful and helpful to first responders, to essential workers, to the nurses? And, personally have ties with, first responders and nurses and doctors who've been just expressing, every day, man, we are short on N95 masks. We're short on isolation gear. We're short on shields. And so we looked at our tool set and the things that we had in our factory and said, guys, we can do this. We can help. Let's do something here. And so we decided to take on the shields because that was something that we could do quickly. There wasn't a lot of red tape to get through. When you build things like shields, you're not dealing with FDA approvals or OSHA compliance as much as you are with like an N95 mask or for example, like a level 3 suit that you need to wear to that can prevent from getting, a virus. So we said, this is something we can do now and get out quickly. And that's what we've done. And we did this about 2 weeks ago. And we're at almost 4,000 orders of these shields. So not a lot, but, more than I expected in that short amount of time. And so, again, we've decided to do this for several reasons. One, it's the right thing to do right now. Two, it's to help keep our staff employed during this time because as things slow down a little bit, it's allowing us to do this kind of stuff right now to help. And thirdly, it's allowing us to just feel like we're making a difference in any way we can, right? And that's it's good for the soul, I guess, is what people have been saying about doing this kind of stuff. So those are probably the big reasons why we've done it. In fact, anything that we make any profit on, we're going to send it right to UNICEF to help fight COVID. So it's just our way of trying to provide back as much as we can as we deal with this current climate we're in.
Phil, you mentioned that you had connections with first responders going into this. Can you talk about that a little bit, about kind of what the connection was and kind of easing into now you're essentially shifting your entire sales process or sales force in a different avenue. Can you walk us through kind of how that looked like to be able to just be able to get the orders in the first place?
Sure. So we haven't shifted our entire sales into selling PPE masks or shields. It's just something that we have in addition to. So I'll just make that clear that we're not making that our 100% focus. It's something that we're just also focusing in addition to what we're doing.
Sure. In the
yeah. And in terms of the connections we have, I think everyone on this call knows of a firefighter or a nurse or a doctor or a health provider or an essential worker right now dealing with the mass public. So it was actually quite easy to immediately recognize who those people were that we were connected with. I guess we're fortunate enough to know that we have a lot of people in our family who are RNs, doctors, even down to like my father. He's got a background biomedical. So we've had those ties long ago and to even to now currently. And that allowed us to express our need to help and express that, hey, we want to know what we can do to give you guys support. And you know, shields was one of the top things that we thought were easy to make and things that they asked for. And so that's kind of, I guess, the outlet that allowed us to tool up and make it happen. I'll tell you, when you provide this type of equipment out there during this time, the support we've been getting has been phenomenal. I mean, having you guys interview us just because we're doing it, to the industry, other industry outlets and associations like IAAPA, you know, really amplifying what we're doing has been a tremendous help. And, you know, there's a lot of us in the amusement sector doing something like this right now, which is fantastic because the demand, I think, is outweighing the supply that all of us can do. So it's cool to see a lot of us doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us, because our hearts, and you mentioned it before, that this is good for the soul, right? To be able to help in some way. You know, I think a lot of us are in this industry because we like to help, because we like to serve others. And, you know, we kind of need to find an outlet for that. And I think it's fantastic. You've been able to kind of pivot your business to be able to do that. I'm curious too about how this was received by your staff. I'm sure they were probably happy to still have hours, but, you know, pivoting what they do, you know, change sometimes is difficult for people, but I'm just curious kind of how this was taken by your staff and their response.
So some of it was across the spectrum. Some people were like, well, what's PPE? Didn't even know what that meant. You know, we have our factory in Texas. And so, you know, these guys were, you know, are used to drilling down and welding, and we have, you know, certified welders on staff making, you know, big old columns for coasters and flume ride pieces for theme parks. And then they take their helmet off and they look at us and they go, what is PPE? Is that another standard that I have to get a certificate on? And so there's that. And then there's other people in sales are like, whoa, I'm not in the medical industry. And so you have to kind of talk to them about, well, this isn't medical, it's safety. And you kind of are in the safety industry. That's our industry. We're in safety. And this is just another component of that. And so some of us quickly embraced it. Some of us were timid because it was a foreign territory, rightfully so. And so as we embraced others to take this on, we also had to educate everybody because we're not experts. You know, we've never made a PPE shield before, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a lot of different ones out there. So I think it was a cool thing for all of us to get together and strategically think about, what does it look like? How do you make it? What is the demand out there? You know, what are the feedback we're seeing from people that we know in the you know, medical to first responder industries, and what are their needs? And that allowed us to quickly put together a prototype, get it in people's hands, to now taking orders. And then now we're going to make a new version. Actually, after what I just sent you, in 2 weeks, we're going to have even a newer version, and we're going to get the cost down to in the dollars. So these are things that we can, and then we're going to be able to produce these things in the thousands per day. So we have that tooled up, ready to go if the demand's there, just in case. And if it's not, that's fine. Now we're back on to what we've been doing, but we're going to tool it up in case the demand is there.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What about the actual engineering and concepting part of it? Because now there's this heightened level of urgency. How has that changed, I would say, the workflow from your team to be able to actually come up with the prototype and then be able to make sure that it's fully spec'd out and ready for mass production?
Sure, that's a great question. You know, a lot of our team at Extreme Engineering are full-time design engineers. We have a whole team here in California, and we have a team in Texas. And you know, part of their duties is engineering design. So a lot of the projects that we currently are on aren't even in the amusement sector. There's the things we do with the oil industry to green energy. So we're out there constantly doing design. So this was something, you know, technically in our wheelhouse that we could absorb and come up with a quick prototype. And thank God that we have the tooling to do prototype work. That's a big part of what our company does, is prototyping and FAT testing, those kind of things. So a shield's much smaller in scale, right, to test versus a big attraction or a big piece of oil equipment, things like that. So we were able to pretty nimble about it. We were able to get something drawn up literally on a sketchbook. We sat down and drew a sketch, several sketches, some crazy sketches, some good ones. And then from there, put it into a SolidWorks, and our engineering program drew something out to made an actual shop drawing and designed it to go to our tool set. And now we're punching out these shields. So I'd say I'm not taking credit for that. That's our engineers. but yeah, it was definitely a pretty awesome effort on their behalf to get this thing done quick. Because right now, this is, I think, time is the essence, right, guys, on getting this kind of stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely right. You know, I think the big uncertainty is how long this is going to go, right? So
right.
if we can get things out there as quick as possible, that might help, you know, flatten the curve, as everybody's talking about, right? So absolutely, time is definitely of the essence. Yeah,
and I think one thing we're going to notice about this, and you probably guys are hearing it, it's not about when the theme parks are opening. It's about how are they opening, right? That's the next question. And I think after this is all done and we're reopening, theme parks, things are going to be a little different, I think. I don't know what they are. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you what that is. But I would say probably this type of stuff is going to be in some shape, way, or form used in the public sector at one point, until things are really truly identified, until a vaccine's out, until everyone's 100% confident that, hey, I'm not worried about, a virus, that we don't need this. So I think this is going to go beyond the healthcare providers and first responders. I think you're going to see big theme parks at entry gates using something, whether it's temperature checks or shields or masks or something. I think we're going to see a little bit of that take place until it's truly done. And so I think this stuff's got a lifespan more than just going to the medical staffers, for sure.
So with that in mind, then, are your gears turning as far as how you design rides? If let's say social distancing is a long lasting effect, does that affect the way that people are seated on attractions? And is that, maybe there's nothing in place right now that you're shifting your engineering model to, but is that
right
kind of at the forefront of?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've had some strategic calls with our partners, with other coaster manufacturers. You nailed it. That is something that's a hot topic right now, is what are we going to do to, with the sensitivity issues on social distancing? Is social distance now going to be the new term, a new norm in design? Is it going to be up there like using the word ASTM and ADA? Hey, is this social distance compliance? Like, is that going to happen? I don't know. But I can tell you that it's something that's a hot topic we're looking into. The whole reason we go to a theme park is not to social distance, it's to be together. So that is going to be a challenge. But I think there's ways we can do things creatively. That's our industry, right? To make it where it can be sensitive to that concern, but still allow us to be together as a community and experience these things together like we usually do. How? I don't know yet. I don't have that answer. That could be in our 5-hour session with you guys on a call. So.
Yeah. Well, if you have time tomorrow, we'll schedule that.
Yeah, guys.
It's interesting when we talk about that social distancing and the engineering part, because there's really at least two parts that, as a layman, I can think of. One is retrofitting, and the other is the new design. Right. Mm-hmm. So right now you have so many coasters that are 2 or 3 or 4 across, where you've got people right next to each other, literally touching each other, and it could be a perfect stranger. Right.
Yep.
How is that going to play? Right.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it's going to be barrier to entry to the park. I think that's where I think you're going to see the change, not so much on the ride itself, but getting into the park. Yeah. I think there's going to be, like I said, maybe temperature checks to, those kind of things. I'll tell you, the one thing that I joke about, but it's actually quite truthful, is the thing I've seen better than any time in my life is when you go to an airport and you use a men's restroom, it is spotless. People are washing their hands. People are using soap. And you know what? I'm seeing that everywhere. Grocery stores, you're going to see it at restaurants. I think after this is done, people are actually going to read the sign that says wash your hands and wash your hands. And I think doing those things and stepping it up on keeping clean and personal hygiene, I think personal hygiene, quite frankly, is a challenge, not just for my 7-year-old and 4-year-old, but for adults. And I think, now I think that's going to change. And if we can truly do those kind of changes on a day-to-day, then these kind of risks that we're going to have are going to be less. I'm not saying, Ivory soap's the solution to COVID, but certainly keeping your hands clean and putting sanitizer on your hands and those kind of things allow us to sit next to each other at a movie theater or next to each other on a roller coaster or those kind of things, right? So I think we're going to, as a culture, culturally, I think we're going to be cleaner, in our society. I think that's something we're going to probably embrace more, which is a great thing, right? We're going to see change. We're going to see things that people are going to adapt that they don't normally adapt. So.
Right. And as people are sort of quarantined and locked down right now for that time period, they say it takes up to 21 days to change a habit. So maybe that time that they're quarantined will be the time that they can build that habit. I think that's
they're going to be better cooks, drink more wine, and wash their hands.
Right.
The building blocks of society, right?
Right.
So Phil, before we started recording, you were talking about whenever there's a breakdown, there's an opportunity for a breakthrough. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about more about that mentality and what that means to you and how you kind of put that into practice.
Yeah, that term came from my dad's used that term for years in our company. Breakdowns comes breakthroughs, and you can go back to the greatest inventors in history. It takes thousands and thousands of times to do something wrong, but that's a good thing. Now you know what to not do, right?
Right.
And breakthroughs make, breakdowns make breakthroughs, and we are in a breakdown moment, and we have the decision. You, me, all three of us on this call. After we get off this call, every day is going to feel like a breakdown. But you can do something, whether it's giving a kiss to your wife is a breakthrough. Learning something to cook is a breakthrough. Calling someone you haven't called in a long time is a breakthrough. So breakthrough doesn't need to be something tangible. It's something mental as well, guys. And so I encourage you guys to do something breakthrough every day in your life. And that mantra then lets you figure out, okay, how do I apply that to everything in my life? Not just personally, but professionally. Well, how do I add that? And I'll tell you that mantra in our company has allowed us to go, okay, yeah, this is a horrible situation. Yeah, this is hard. Yeah, these are hard things. But you know what? We got to do something. I'm not going to just sit here and woe is me and break down. And by the way, you should break down. It's okay. If you've got to cry and you got to get through that, that's okay. But then pause, reflect, and then break through it. And that's what we're doing. And I can tell you, if you can do that every day, and I'm still trying to be that expert, guys. I'm not by any means that expert, but if you can work on that every day, you'll be better at it. You'll break through everything in your life for sure.
And so, what I like what I like about the examples that you gave there is that a breakthrough, it does not need to be something that is absolutely monumental. You just listed, a wide variety of very small things that we can do that really add up. So you learn a new language or write that novel. That is a massive breakthrough, but you need to kind of collect the small wins along the way too.
Right. You do. And don't ignore the small wins, I'll tell you, I had my breakdown moment last week, I get calls that my kids are no longer going to be in school for the rest of the year. My wife's working from home, and it's hard. It's hard, guys. And you're sitting here going, how do you navigate through all this? And, I could complain about that, but I get to hang out with my sons more than I ever have. I get to hang out with my wife more ever than I have. We get to have deep conversation. Those are things that I call breakthroughs in my marriage and my relationship with my kids. I'm on the phone with people that I used to live in Australia. I'm talking to my family in Australia. They're basically family for the first time in 5 years on Zoom. And I'm sitting there going, why haven't we done this before?
Right.
Right. And so these are all breakthrough moments, guys, in our lives personally. And applying that, I think, has allowed, again, then you go to the more tangible things, I guess, like product per se, or PPE shields. These breakdown moments wire us to have breakthrough ideas, right? And it may not be the right idea the first time, but you eventually get there. And I think that's kind of what our mantra's been, and that's been my value as a person that I've gained from my father, and that's been amplified through our company culture. And I can tell you, I think that's been amplified in a lot of ways through our industry. You know, I mean, look at you two guys, you know, doing video calling interviews. That's really cool. You know, and I've seen you guys do all sorts of great interviews, and it's helped you guys build perspective, and it's made people you've interviewed also get perspective and then feel a value. So what you guys do is quite important. It's a breakthrough. So hopefully I'm answering that question for you on the breakthrough moment here, guys. It's a deep one, but
It is.
Yeah.
So, but it does definitely apply to everything in our life. You know, it's definitely not just a saying. And if you truly believe you can do that and get through it, guys, like every day is a breakthrough moment for you. Just got to do it.
And it also, I think it ties in really nicely with gratitude. Like, I think this is a big, like, Tony Robbins thing. Like, wake up in the morning and, like, list, 5 things that you're grateful for. You know, you can now take this and at the end of the day, list all the breakthroughs that you have. Start taking count of those and acknowledging, it's very easy to look at the breakdowns. I can tell you every breakdown of the last 5 days and, in great detail,
right.
Need to start saying, okay, what came out of each of these. So I think
that's you hit it, you dead on. And guys, last thing we need to do is read the news every morning and see all the just the hysteria. I think we're wired in a way, guys, to think about the negative because we want to solve the problem, but it overwhelms you. So you got to think about the wins, like you just said. And so, that's what we've done. Like, we've had to think about wins in this moment. And that, I think, really, guys, is what pushed us to do this. Was that one thing, was that mantra, was, okay, how do we do a breakthrough here? And will we make a ton of money on this? Will we be successful? I don't know. That's for the next call. All I can tell you is that we've decided to do it. So
yeah. But it's in these times of, like, global breakdown that, somebody comes, like yourself, comes out with a breakthrough, and somebody else does it, and somebody else does it. And then all those kind of collective actions are what kind of lifts everybody else, right? It kind of lifts everybody around us. And one of the things I really appreciate about what you were saying about the breakdown and breakthrough is it's just like washing hands. It's a habit, right? It's something you do every single day. It's something you focus on. And the more you focus on the good and the positive, the more those things ultimately happen in your life. So I love that message.
Yep. Wash your hands today, okay?
I already did a couple times. So very clean jazz hands. So Phil, we really appreciate the time that you've been able to spend with us. Do you have any kind of last thoughts or last words that you'd like to share before we round this out?
You guys have heard this so many times, but I think the biggest gift in our lives is life, right? And you have one shot. And I can tell you, I've had some pretty emotional calls in the last 5 days, hearing people personally dealing with this, people losing people over this, people losing businesses over this. But at the end of the day, it's life. And I just encourage you guys, when we get off the phone, like, make it count, talk to your friends, talk to your family, give a hug, give a kiss, have that awkward conversation that you've been holding inside with someone that you've been wanting to do it now. It's time. And I'm not saying the world's going to end. We're not there. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that's one thing that I'd like everyone to take away from this is, like, this is time for reflection in our lives. And let's think about the things that we had to put on the sidelines because we've been so busy. Now that things are slowing down a little bit, this is time to take advantage of that. And I call it your 13th month. Imagine, and we usually have 12 months in a year, right? But we have a leap month, and this is that leap year, and you got your 13th month. You got 4 more weeks of whatever you want to do with that month. And that month is for cleaning your house, washing your hands, breakthroughs, all those things, guys, that we've been talking about on this call, that's your 13th month. And I think you guys can take that month and do some wonderful things. It's a gift, in a big way, it's a gift. You guys got a gift. You're welcome. Now, what do you want to do with it? Right. So that's what I have to say about if at the end of this call is just that is it's life is precious, and you got that 13th month, and it's time for you guys to reflect and be positive about that.
Excellent.
Well, I'm pretty fired up now.
I am too.
I'm
ready to go.
What am I going to do right after this call of just saying, all right, what's today's breakthrough?
You're going to wash your hands first.
Yeah, I'm going to wash my hands. Bill, we really appreciate
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for letting me have some time on a call. And, it's always great to just see you guys on a screen, not just over a phone, and get to know you two a little bit better too. And, I got to meet Matt for the first time on stage with this wonderful Lifetime Achievement Award. But it's cool to actually get to talk to you there. So,
definitely.
And I love what you guys are doing. This is fantastic. So keep it up.
Appreciate it. Well, we look forward to connecting again in person, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it will be sooner, guys. Don't you worry about that. We'll be definitely in IAAPA November or Europe. It's going to happen. Let's just the show must go on. So we're going to keep that going. That's going to be in our head that we're going to keep it going. So
yeah.
Good.
All right, guys.
Well, Phil, stay safe and go wash your hands.
You got it, buddy. All right. Thank you, guys.